And welcome back to AFA Today. Back to our phones in just a second. Hey, 2 weeks from today is our fall share-a-thon. We'd love for you to be a part of it. And if you've got a story to tell about what American Family Radio has meant to you down through the years, we'd love to hear from you. And you can do that right away. You can call 800-326-4543, 800-326-4543. Press for option 8, and leave your recording there. You know, it's one of the blessings of Share-a-thon. We hear from so many listeners about what AFR means to you. It's company, it's informative, it's challenging, it's the preaching programs that you hear each day that just stimulate and draw you closer to the Lord. Amen. That's and we'd like to hear your testimony on that. 800-326-4543, option 8, when you get through on that line, and just leave your recording with us, and perhaps you will hear your testimony during Share-a-thon, which begins 2 weeks from today. And also, one of the great joys that we have during the Share-a-thon period is meeting a lot of people face-to-face, our listeners, because they come here to our home base in Tupelo, Mississippi, and they're part of the phone volunteers. It is a great time. It's a great time. You get to meet some of the folks here at AFR, and we get to know you a little better face-to-face. If you can be one of those telephone volunteers during our Share-a-thon from October 22nd to the 24th, those 3 days, give Deanna a call at 800-326-4543, 800-326-4543, extension 204, and she'll set you up with a time that you can be part of it. It's a great time, and you get some free food when you come in, and you get to meet some of the characters that you hear every day on the air. We'd love to have you to be that part at American Family Radio Share-a-thon, coming up starting 2 weeks from today, October 22nd, for 3 days. All right, let's go back to our phones, and let's go to Arkansas, I believe it is, and John is on the line. John, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You bet.
I'm 26 years old, and I started listening to AFR after, I surrendered to preach, and I really wanted to get involved, with doing God's will in the world, and I kind of feel like my generation is really just not stepping up and standing for biblical principles. I just feel like the church may be slacking in the way of, teaching politics in the church, which I grew up, they'd say keep religion and politics separate. But I feel like, the liberals are teaching and indoctrinating so many of my generation with only one way to think, and they're losing those biblical principles when they go off to liberal colleges. And I feel like the churches just really need to step up and teach, because I want everyone to be healthy. I want everyone to have health care. But to force me to pay in for the good of someone else is taking my money. It's stealing, and there's definitely better ways to do things. I just had a little girl, she's 2 weeks old, and my wife isn't working, and I think money is tight. I can't afford health care right now, even for myself, let alone another person. And I just wish my generation would wake up and see that the socialized medicine is not the direction that this country needs to go.
No. Hey, listen, some good points there, John. We thank you for calling in and ask God's blessing upon your ministry, and congratulations on that new little one. A couple of points here. John was talking about getting involved, and that some churches at least have been reluctant to talk about political matters. They say, well, politics doesn't belong in the pulpit. Some have been intimidated by, those groups out there, the ACLU, who say you can't talk about politics from the pulpit. Well, that's just not true. And for the Christian, over the last 10, 15 years, folks, you cannot separate your Christianity from where public policy has taken us in this country, be it abortion or homosexual marriage. Hey, listen, the liberal churches, I'll tell you, John was, I assume, talking about mostly evangelical churches. I tell you what, the liberal churches out there certainly talk politics from their pulpits. They certainly encourage their congregations to get behind abortion efforts, get behind efforts to legalize homosexual marriage. They're not shy about this. You see, when you're a Christian, your convictions ought to have an impact on all areas of your life. And when the government of the day is challenging biblical beliefs and biblical values, and indeed trying to take your freedom away from expressing those biblical values, you had better speak up. And you say, Fred, what are you talking about? Well, how about those stories we deal with almost on a weekly basis here of Christian-run businesses being told you had no choice, you have to do business with homosexuals, be it a Christian-run bakery, be it a Christian-run hotel or hospice, whatever the case may be. Our freedoms as Christians have been taken away. The freedom to express yourself at schools, at universities. Christian clubs and universities being told you're not allowed to operate unless you allow homosexuals in, and even allow homosexuals to run for office in that Christian club on that university. That's the kind of thing that's going on. And that's the kind of thing that silence from Christians has led to in not speaking up. We're talking about universities here that get your taxpayers' dollars. So no, you cannot separate your Christian life from what's going on in public life. Certainly what we have seen over the last 10 or 15 years. Back to our phones. Deborah in Tennessee, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I've really been thinking about this whole thing with Obamacare, and it just seems to me that the middle class, the redistribution of wealth that is going on through Obamacare is going to make the middle class the dependent class. And in my mind, I believe that the middle class is the most important voter bloc here. And I think that if you make the middle class dependent, then they will never be removed from office. I've looked at these premiums. They're off the wall. And I don't believe that the middle class will remain the middle class if they're fleeced like this.
Yep, some good points, Deborah. We appreciate that. I was talking to somebody on the weekend, and they were talking about just where things appear to be headed, and they reminded me of some remarks that the president has made in the past. He has called America the greatest country in the world, but remember what his slogan was in 2008. We're going to change this country. We're going to change the world. So on one hand, he was saying, America's the greatest country in the world, but we're going to change it. Now, that was his promise. We're going to change the country, and we're going to change the world. And how do you do that? Well, you get the federal government more and more involved with your life. And you do it with, and I've said this so often, you do it with your palm up. You say, I'm going to give you stuff. Whether it's the nation's education system, which is supposed to be under local control, folks, at least state control. Now the federal government is taking over that. Now health care. What an impact that's going to have on our nation. If the president and Harry Reid and others in the Democratic Party get their wish to completely control health care in this country. You say, Fred, you're exaggerating. You're one of those conspiracy guys. No, it's not. You can go on YouTube and get those comments from the president. They've been played over and over again. Single payer system, single provider system. And what does that mean? Very clearly, you move the insurance companies out of the way entirely, and the government becomes the provider. That allows the government to set all the rules, folks. You know, Sarah Palin was chastised immensely for talking about things such as death panels. But what happens under socialized medicine is sooner or later you start to run out of money. You can't afford it. And you have these groups of people who are then authorized to make decisions on what kind of health care individuals are going to get. Now, the Democrats have denied that will ever happen. But once the government is in control, a government that does not demonstrate biblical values, that advocates abortion, millions of unborn babies being killed, and this is a government that advocates giving organizations like Planned Parenthood hundreds of millions of dollars every year to facilitate that activity. What else are you supposed to think? This government, the president, and yes, his wife has been involved, basically telling people what they should eat. So what happens when you have ultimate control? If you're not eating what they tell you to eat, then maybe that jeopardizes what kind of health care that you get. Is that out of the realm of possibility? No, it's not. Because doctors' offices will tell you they are under orders under Obamacare now that all the data that they take from you gets saved. The government wants to know every aspect of your life. And sooner or later, if this thing keeps going, that means more control over every facet of your life. All right, back to the phones. Virginia, Rachel, go ahead.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I have just a couple of comments. One, I have worked in the healthcare system since before managed care, and we all know there are answers. The health savings plan that Ben Carson mentioned, it will work. It's working in other places.
Yes.
And also, most people don't realize that healthcare insurance is not open to compete across state lines, which is true for car insurance and home owner's insurance.
Yes.
And that alone would create a lot of competition and much better health insurance programs.
Yeah, exactly.
My other comment is with these things happening in the state parks where they're closing down open air access areas. I'm hearing of closing the ocean. I'm hearing about people who live in state parks for 20, 30 years being made to leave their homes. Where are the governors of the states? Where are the governors to protect their school children from these dangerous roads? Where are the governors to protect their people?
Yeah. Rachel, excellent
authority.
points. Excellent points. And what Rachel is talking about, I just want to address a few of them. Rachel was talking about under Obamacare, you're not allowed to have this competition. She mentioned, like, if you go to get auto insurance or house insurance, you can go online, go on the internet, and if your insurer is based in some other state, you can still get your insurance through them, your house insurance, your auto insurance, whatever the case. Under Obamacare, that's not allowed. You're limited to the insurance companies that do operation in your state. Right away, that cuts down on the competition. And when there's less competition out there, folks, we all know that, prices go up. That's the way it's been. And the ability in the free capital system that we've enjoyed in this country for so many years, and some would argue one of the things that has made this country great is competition. It helps to keep prices down. Now, that's not an opinion. That's historic fact. But when you limit that competition, you give certain entities more control over your life. All right. Brent, I think we have time for one more call. Let's try to get that in. Let's go to George in Missouri. George, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for what you're doing. This president, they really need to impeach him. I think he's went off his rocker, and he's just waiting. He's waiting for the right time to start using those 200 or the 2 billion bullets. He's waiting to unleash all that stuff on the American public. He's just waiting to do that. He hates us so bad. He needs to be impeached immediately.
Well, George, I think that would be, thanks for calling, that would be difficult. And I keep reminding people when I do these programs, let us remember, he was elected in 2008. We found out basically what his agenda was immediately after he was elected. He is a big government guy. Yet the United States reelected him in 2012. So he was legitimately elected according to the constitutional system that we all live under in this country. So that's a fact. So I think when you start looking at, okay, who's to blame for all of this? Well, it's the people who elected him in 2008 and the people who reelected him in 2012. That is, and as my boss, Tim Wildman, the president of AFA, often says on the air, elections have consequences. So the question is now, we can't do anything to change the results of the election in 2012. But what can happen, there is another election next year, and people can get involved. If you don't like what you're seeing right now, There is the possibility that if people get out and vote and they're disenchanted enough, that perhaps control of the Senate could return to the Republican Party. That's a possibility. But you got to be involved. And that's what it comes down to. Yes, is change possible? Yes. But we do it at the ballot box in this country. That's the way it is done. Now, as far as the president's agenda go, he's made that pretty clear. He said back there a couple of months ago, I've got about 1,200 days left as president of the United States. And folks, he's going to do all that he can to bring out his agenda. He is a leftist ideologue. That's what he believes in. He says over again, I've been elected and reelected, and so the people are giving me that right. But perhaps, as I say, this can be a learning experience for the country. They're getting to see what a leftist ideology is all about. The question is, will the country learn its lesson? Hey, Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin today. Lord willing, Kevin will be back tomorrow. Been great to be with you. Continue on listening to American Family Radio. More great programming coming your way. You have yourself a good day. Bye for now.